There's one thing about the heist that doesn't sit right with me, and it has nothing to do with the fact that it ends badly. What keeps bothering me is whether the heist was ever really possible in the first place, and whether the decisions that led to it were ever truly inevitable. To even start answering that, we need to go back to the very beginning, to V, more specifically, Corpo V, and look at the choices he makes long before the job even exists. Because if the heist was doomed from the start, the reasons for that might be hiding much earlier than we think. At the center of all this is a simple question: what kind of person Corpo V actually is? Whether he leans more towards the Fool card, which for the purposes of this exploration represents someone relying on momentum and luck more than anything else, or whether he leans toward the Judgement card, which represents someone who understands the system he operates in and weighs his decisions accordingly. So as we go through the Corpo intro together and take a closer look at V's early decisions, I'll be paying attention to which of those impulses ends up dominating. It is going to matter for how we read the heist. With that in mind, let's dive in. If we choose to play as a Corpo, V starts at Arasaka headquarters in Night City, throwing up in a company bathroom. A call with Jackie follows, and we learn about a data leak in Frankfurt. The counterintelligence department, where V works, is under serious pressure. And from a decision-making standpoint, this is not a great start. No matter which dialogue option we choose, V ends up sharing sensitive information with a third party. And right in the middle of that conversation, another Arasaka employee walks in. Even if we assume V was completely alone, this is still Arasaka, and we are in an extremely hostile and hyper-competitive world of wild capitalism. What if someone is in one of the closed stalls? What if the bathroom itself is monitored? This is the first moment where V acts as if the system isn't watching him, and that's a dangerous assumption to make. That's a clear step toward the Fool. Before heading upstairs to meet his boss, V can take a short detour and listen in on some office gossip. From that, we learn just how serious the Frankfurt leak really is. Serious enough for other Arasaka managers to start making precautionary calls, pulling assets, and shutting down operations. As soon as we step out of the elevator on the counterintelligence floor, we run into Frank, a member of Susan Abernathy's team who is Jenkins' rival. Here, we're given several dialogue options to choose from, and this is a good moment to bring up another rule I set for this analysis. Because both the intro and the heist itself are fairly linear, and they lock V into a specific chain of events, I think it's only fair that I ignore deliberately self-destructive dialogue options that make no sense for someone with V's background. Instead, I'll be looking at the choices that feel most consistent with both the situation and who Corpo V is supposed to be. That's why, in this situation, I don't pick dialogue options that reveal Jenkins' weaknesses or expose how he really feels about Abernathy. The safest move is to say you're in a hurry and can't talk. And this is the first moment that feels like the real Corpo V, the one who understands that information can be weaponized and knows better than to hand it out. That's a mark in the Judgments column. Right before we enter Jenkins's office, we overhear a conversation where V is referred to as Jenkins's boy, or girl if you're playing a female V. That tells us something important. V isn't just another employee. He's second in command to the head of Night City's counterintelligence division. In a corporate environment like this, you don't end up in that position by accident. The fact that V has stayed there until now proves that he is highly capable. That's another step towards the Judgment. Next, we finally meet our boss, Arthur Jenkins. And almost immediately, it becomes clear that he's deeply unhinged by his own power. Right in front of us, he orders a massacre of the European Space Council to prevent them from revoking Arasaka's license, buying just one more week of time. Technically, it's a cyber attack, but people die. This scene is not just about Jenkins' cruelty. It's about a world where corporations hold absolute power, where decisions like this are possible and even expected, and where Jenkins will not be held accountable for the lives lost. Susan Abernathy immediately calls to berate him for his messy way of solving problems. After the call, Jenkins openly tells us how much he hates her. No matter which dialogue option we choose, he explains that she double-crossed him back in Osaka, stealing a promotion to Special Operations Director right from under his nose. According to Jenkins, she's been tanking his promotion chances ever since. Then he asks V what he would do in his position. From a corporal perspective, you need to defend yourself might sound like a reasonable answer. V doesn't suggest eliminating Abernathy, only striking once, just enough to force respect. And yet, this advice could easily backfire. In this system, showing strength doesn't necessarily buy you security. Instead, it gives people like Abernathy a reason to take you out before you become an even bigger threat. The other option is basically, give up and die. That's not something you tell your boss. It's unhelpful and clearly not in V's interest. None of these options feel reasonable. Realistically, the smartest move V could make here would be to avoid answering altogether. Even entertaining Jenkins' question pulls V deeper into a conflict that has nothing to do with him, and one he has no real control over. But that kind of silence isn't an option the game allows. This situation is already rigged. That's why this counts as a fool moment for me. The very next thing Jenkins does makes that painfully clear. He hands V a data shard with intel on Abernathy and orders him to eliminate her. Even though V is clearly backed into a corner, one thing still matters here. We've already seen how cruel and radical Jenkins is. He's a dangerous corporate predator. The fact that he trusts V enough to hand over something this sensitive tells us a lot. It means V has already proven himself as someone Jenkins can rely on. In a way, V matches his boss's energy. He's a shark too. Otherwise, he wouldn't survive under Jenkins' command. He would have been disposed of long ago. That's a point in the Judgement's favor. V does at least question how sound this plan actually is. But Jenkins immediately resorts to blackmail, reminding V that his position depends entirely on him. At that point, refusal would mean nothing, because V is already compromised. Everyone links him to Jenkins anyway. He can't say no, only delay the consequences. And this leads to another the fool moment. Because being indispensable is how you climb a corporate ladder in Arasaka. Knowing when to stop being indispensable is how you survive. And that's the moment V doesn't recognize in time. After leaving Jenkins' office, V can stop by his cubicle and talk to his subordinate, Harry. Harry needs a decision whether to pull their corporate spy out of Biotechnica. Given the Frankfurt leak, the smarter move is to pull him out immediately. That's another mark in the Judgement column. We can also check V's personal computer. There, we find a postmortem on Operation Wormy Apple. One of the missions V was responsible for turned into a complete disaster, and only succeeded because Petrochem made even more costly mistakes than Arasaka did. That kind of outcome doesn't point to careful planning. It points to relying on impulse and luck. I'd count it as a fool moment. But then we look at V's employee evaluation, and it tells a very different story. Whatever mistakes were made, Arasaka values V highly. That instantly pulls the balance back toward the Judgement. Next, V takes Jenkins AV to Lizzie's bar to meet Jackie. During the flight through the neon-lit night city, his life coach calls. According to his biometrics, V is experiencing chronic stress, exhaustion, and sleep problems, and he's been on edge for a long time. This is where a contradiction starts to emerge. V clearly has the ruthlessness Arasaka demands. That's exactly why Jenkins keeps him. But his own data suggests the cost of that ruthless facade is already too high, and V is aware of it. But instead of acknowledging it and taking control of his own life, he relies on hormone blockers to stay functional. To me, that's another fool moment. As soon as V arrives, it's clear he knows how to navigate the street level of Night City, shutting down a group of street punks and forcing the member of the Mox gang into submission. This leans firmly toward the Judgement. V then confides in Jackie about the complete shit show he's been dragged into. Discussing sensitive information in a public place might seem reckless at first, but it's actually a smart move. Unless you need to hide the fact that you met someone at all, a noisy, overcrowded bar is often safer for talking business than a quiet, private space that might be packed with bugs you don't even know about. That's another the judgment moment. Jackie refuses to be a solo on this job and tries to convince V to walk away. But as we already know, that's not an option. Jenkins has him in a chokehold. They raise a toast, and almost immediately Arasaka agents from headquarters show up. An interesting side note. Until I sat down to analyze this quest properly, I never noticed that the agents are accompanied by Frank. V's decision not to spill his guts in front of him makes even more sense now, even if it didn't help him in the end. For someone in V's position, this whole situation is a serious oversight. As a senior counterintelligence operative, he should have done some actual counterintelligence work. At the very least, he should have assumed the operation was already compromised and gone dark within Arasaka's corporate network, making it harder for the agents to track him. Not doing that marks a clear fool moment, the biggest one so far. The Arasaka agents demand the data shard Jenkins gave V. At this point, there's no right answer. No matter what V does, he is fucked either way. His bank account is frozen, his access to Arasaka's networks is revoked, his corporate cyberware is disabled, and the shard is taken. The agents try to abduct him, but Jackie steps in and stops them. So yes, trusting Jackie was the right instinct. It just wasn't enough to change the situation. Jackie pulls V off the floor, and the game finally goes into the cutscene where Night City is properly introduced. And that's it for the Corpo V intro. Looking at the results, the balance is surprisingly close. 6 for the Fool, 7 for the Judgment. This is an interesting outcome for me, because going in, I expected Corpo V to be overwhelmingly cautious, something close to 80% judgment. Instead, it turns out things could have easily gone either way. So, if the scales are that easy to tip, could V be the reason the heist failed? For now, I'll take the point distribution as it is, and keep that question in mind as we move forward. Based on this playthrough, Corpo V is clearly well established within the Arasaka hierarchy. He's trusted by his direct manager, doesn't shy away from taking responsibility for difficult decisions, and is respected and feared by his subordinates. When he's locked into an unavoidable situation, he's not afraid to speak up and ask questions, even if, in the end, he still follows orders. He also knows how to handle people outside the corporate world, and through his friendship with Jackie, he clearly has connections with Night City streets. But Corpo V isn't flawless. At times, he's sloppy. He's not careful enough around other Arasaka employees. Some of the operations he's involved in aren't properly thought through, and he fails at due diligence exactly where it matters most. I wasn't expecting this analysis to leave me with more doubts than answers. And that's exactly what I'll be carrying with me when I eventually get to the heist, to see whether this mix of competence and sloppiness is what tipped the scale in the wrong direction. In the next video, I'll be looking at the Streetkid life path. If this kind of character-focused analysis is interesting to you, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It really helps. Thanks for watching!